Well, hello again, everybody. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, whatever it is in your neck of the woods. Welcome to our broadcast. I'm glad to have you here. I hope you're safe and I hope you're healthy. Today's presentation will be monolithic color application in one firing. And hopefully you understand what I mean by this. I've gone over so much in the past, but this will be talking about uh, basically how to do things when it absolutely positively has to be right in one firing, or that UPS's truck is there, or the FedEx truck is there, or the doctor's waiting on it. So this is that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, for those of you that have followed me on Facebook, we've seen this introductory slide before, but we're always trying to get everything in one application and one fire. We don't need to waste time. Time is money, and we always have those trucks waiting on you, and you got to get the stuff out. So there's more than one way to achieve a successful outcome. So let's look at the available options. And all methods require a firing cycle that yields consistent, proper results. So to achieve mature color to good glaze, thicker monolithic restorations require more drying, adjusted climb rates, and adjusted high temperatures. Plus, you got to remember the cooling time. So the main thing is glaze application the first, because we got to get a shine on it. The MiYO is pretty easy to use. So when we get the in-sync paste glaze and you mix it up in the jar and it's a little thick, yeah, it's a little too thick if it looks like this. If it goes on pasty like sour cream, it's too thick. It's going to be hard to do things, and it's not going to melt out to an even texture. So take a look at this application right here. Look to the distal, the right side of the restoration. You see where it's like dry, but it's so thin it's like water. And if it goes on water or it beads up or you don't have any surface tension, it probably won't be thick enough to give you a good glaze. That's the things where you fire it, it has that satin look to it. But what we're looking for is something like this right here. So normally with my colors, I don't have them throughout the brush. I'm using a size #1 brush because it yields good results. It's the same size brush basically like in a nail polish applicator. So it glides it on. The application should be like a thick latex paint or a thin honey, so it glides on very, very easily. You want a nice even coat. So to achieve a good glaze or shine, the thinner in-sync paste glaze applications, the viscosity and dimension-wise, require more of a high temperature. If you have a thicker application, you could fire it at a lower temperature. Thinner it is, the higher you got to go. So this is method #1. We're going to apply the paste glaze. We're going to apply the color on top of it, float it on top of it, and then we're going to fire it. So here I already have the in-sync paste glaze applied. And I'm going to lightly, with a very gentle stroke, apply color to the cervical. Regardless of where it's placed or how many colors or effects, after the MiYO color application, a nice glaze should be achievable with a proper firing cycle. And this is what I'd like you to learn how to do the most, is you get the nice glaze coat on there, and then you're going to glide on your colors. So with a spray glaze, I know instant spray glaze may not be your main go-to glaze, but it is a valuable tool. And one coat, this is the one hybrid or one Hail Mary. Apply the in-sync paste glaze, apply your MiYO colors, but you can apply one or more coats of the in-sync spray glaze to make darn sure that that one firing you have it. If you're ever having a situation where you might not get a full glaze sometimes because you put it on too thin, hit it with a coat of spray glaze, and it 99.999% of the time, you're going to end up with a nice shine. So I'm not trying to show you how to put colors on because we've done that in lots of other Facebook presentations. I'm just gliding some color on so you see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm gliding color on the cervical. This is a shade A. I always go to shade A on these things. I start at the beginning. A, B, C, D. A is the first one. So I glide a thin coat on. It looks like there's nothing right at the cervical, but that's because of the reflection of my lighting, and I apologize for that. So I'm just putting a little color in. So this is post one coat of in-sync spray glaze application. You see it's shiny. But when you spray it on top, now I put the paste glaze down first, but it might not have been enough. But you'll see the in-sync spray glaze drying from the distal only because of the lighting there. And if you see, my reflection going back and forth, I'm actually taking the top to my stain kit and fanning this so it'll dry a little bit easier. But just like spray paint dries or any kind of powdered spray like you use for when you're scanning, you'll see this start to dry over a period of time. And yeah, I was fanning it, trying to help it dry a little bit easier so you can see this. Method number two, and this is what you can do, is you apply the in-sync paste glaze film, you apply your MiYO colors, and apply 3 thin coats. Now, when I say a film, I'm taking a small applicator. We've all seen these applicator things for like acid etch, and I get a little paste glaze, and it's pasty. But all I'm trying to do is create a tacky surface, just like you have with a Post-it note. So very thin, tacky surface, and I put the color on. In fact, this is what I have the Army Dental Labs doing, because I deal with the Army Dental Labs, and they're doing this for the troops because they're using Monolithic because it doesn't break or delaminate. And on top of it, it's not enough glaze to shine. It's just enough to make the surface sticky. So I'm putting the MiYO color on top of it, and I want to get my glaze by the spray glaze on top. Now, can you apply 2 coats? Yeah, but it'd probably work about 60 or 70, maybe 80% of the time. So 3 thin coats is better than 2 thick coats. So here's my first in-sync spray glaze application. And you see it has that shiny wet look to it. So I just sprayed it right over the wet MiYO. Now, it doesn't want to dry. Now, I've sped this up. This video sped up a little bit. You can see it starting to dry here. And it's like applying powder. So now I have it blacked out. And here's my second application. You want to spray it till it gets a wet look to it. And the more coats you put, the faster it'll dry. So you can see now that it gets, once it doesn't have the shine to it all the way, I can apply another coat. And here's my third application. And you notice how fast the third application dries. Now, you see it on the stick that I have it on, it's black, but now it looks white. That's because it's dried on the stick. You can see it drying out. Really is easy to use. And a spray coat takes about 6 to 7 seconds. So after it's dried, I just take a dry brush and brush it off. You can see it's just sprayed powder, very little medium. And your larger cases can be sprayed very quickly with fantastic results. I used to spray airbrush stuff, and I used to airbrush glazes, and I used to airbrush opaques and everything else. So here's the three unit case right here with tissue. Here's the first spray coat on it. And you see it starting to dry on the mesial of the central. And the minute it doesn't look wet, it doesn't look very, very wet, you can spray your next coat on. So the minute it doesn't have, you really don't want it to get super powder dry. So this is real time. I'm actually going in between when it goes off screen. I have a little fly tying thing right there that holds it. So there's my second coat that I've applied, and you see it's drying quicker. Now this is because I didn't have the wet MiYO on it. This is just showing you a spray glaze technique. And then I'm taking it and spraying it. It takes about 5 or 6 seconds to spray it, and it takes about 5 or 6 seconds in between coats. It takes longer to get it focused on the screen. 56 seconds is what it took me to spray this 3-unit bridge with the tissue. Nice thing is with 3 coats, you know it's going to work. And the more it dries, the more thicker it looks. So how thick is it? Well, there's plenty to glaze right there. It's less than a 1/2 of a millimeter. So I'm taking a razor blade and I'm cutting it in there, and you can see it looks a little deeper because it's magnified so much, but it's like a coat of powder. It's like dust. So now I'll blow it off there a little bit. You see me scrape it off, and it looks a little thicker, but remember, just like any ceramic, it shrinks a little bit, it condenses when it fires. This will mic out to less than 1/10. So something quick for those of you who have never sprayed glazed before, here's what I'm using. Make sure you get that nozzle. It's in the upper right-hand corner. Spray can considerations. If you ever see a can that has a little black dot there we see in the left picture, that shows you where your dip tube is in the middle picture where it's hanging down. You want to find out what's best. You don't want to get it too close so it runs, or too far away so it's too faint. About 5 inches from the tip of the nozzle. And then you want to make sure you're spraying perpendicular to your surface. So I have that little football on the right-hand side there, but if you have three angles, you're going to spray it three times. Make sure you stay parallel to the surface and make sure you spray before you get to it and after you pass it so you have what you need. Multiple thin coats are better than one thick coat. Always initial coat sprayed on wet MiYO applications will not look dry. Use areas that are not MiYO coated to determine the level of dry. It doesn't need to be powder dry. And three coats seem to work 100% of the time. Always take and clean things off with a dry brush and never use a wet brush because it makes the glaze look translucent. And never place your work directly on a sagger tray because it's going to mess it up. It's just like it's dipped in powder. So the stuff doesn't really have an adherence to what you're applying it to because it's just sprayed powder basically with a very, very little bit of material so it'll help it spray. So that's pretty much it for today. But if you still have questions, call our technical department at 800-528-5531 for further assistance. Make sure to follow Jensen Dental on Facebook and Instagram so you can be updated every time we go live. And you can also visit jensendental.com/MiYO to learn more about MiYO. Thanks for watching today, and please click the follow button to get notifications of future MiYO education tips and tricks. And please, please, people, be careful. Keep a safe distance. Wash your hands. Disinfect. We're very close to the vaccinations that'll work. And I want to make sure everybody gets out on the other side of this. Thank you so much. Everybody have a happy holiday too. This is Terry from Jensen. I appreciate your time.